Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 69th episode of the Oligarchy Disruptor podcast with your host, Bennett and Leon. And of course, we have the lovely Ashley Downing with us as well, joining us from Florida. No, California, my bad.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm in California.
Yeah, she's taking a cruise like I told you guys, enjoying her time spreading her wings over there. So how's it going, by the way?
Fabulous. It is beautiful here.
Cool. You told me it was sunnier over there, no? Than it is in Illinois.
It is so sunny. I don't know if it's necessarily sunnier, but it's just the sun is a lot hotter.
Interesting. Yeah,
it's only in the probably upper 60s, but I'm getting a little burnt.
Oh, like I told you earlier, you look tan. You look tanner, dude. I don't know. But today, guys, let's just go ahead and jump into it. We have an amazing episode for you. We are going to talk about the CARES, the CARES Act, the HEROES Act, the one that was just passed last week by the House, led by the Democrats. And we're going to go dive into that, break it down for you, and how this basically was a giveaway to the insurance companies because they kind of just covered Cobra with this. So you'll learn all about that in just a minute. So let's go ahead and dive into this article that we have for you from The Intercept. And it covers very extensively what we're going to talk about. So as we see there, the queen herself, Mama Bear, as AOC likes to call her, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House. And this was on May 12th, this article, so it is very new. But I wanted to start off by saying one of the most impactful things to me that kind of stood out when I saw and read this article is that insurance companies like United Healthcare, Humana, Cigna have reported profits during this time amid record high unemployment levels. I think we're at 35. I'm pretty sure 35 million people. And people have reported profits during the pandemic, unemployment levels, and have boasted that they don't expect to take a financial hit. That's the part that kind of got me the most, because how are they exempt from anything that's going on right now? You know, how are insurance companies out of everybody the ones that are not taking a hit? You know, and that is a huge thank you on their part to the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi, because this is literally a huge giveaway to them, and we'll explain exactly why in this episode. So Ashley, you kind of want to give a brief instance of how this kind of went down?
Well, I guess it's supposed to be kind of like a second CARES Act, right? But this is not really for the people. It's more for the insurance, just to pay out for the insurance companies. But they're kind of gearing it so that it seems like it's going to benefit people. And how what they're saying is, well, basically how it works is if you work for a company that offers health insurance and you have your health insurance through your employer, then you normally have to pay some sort of premium for your health care. Well, during this time, obviously, a lot of people aren't working, so they're not able to pay those premiums. So this HEROES Act is supposed to pay Cobra for you, which is kind of this program that you can get on if you are not able to afford your insurance. So they're going to pay all these premiums and everything so that people who are unable to work, out of work right now, don't have to pay for their premiums. Which in theory, right, seems like a really great idea. You don't want people to go without health insurance. You don't want people to have to pay for their health insurance if they can't really afford it. You don't want people to not go get healthcare because they can't afford it. But if you really think about this in the grand scheme of things, these are people who I don't want to say all of these people can afford their health insurance, but they're working for companies who pay them salary type wages. These are people who make a decent living or better, and they're offered this insurance through their employer, which means that they're already given a lot of benefits. And typically, if you're given benefits from your job, you're typically paid pretty well from these employers. So this act really does absolutely nothing for people who already don't have health insurance, for people who are paying for their health insurance through like, Obamacare and stuff like that. And if they are not working and are unable to pay for their insurance, this does not help them whatsoever. It's only for people who are provided health insurance through their employer.
Exactly.
Sorry, that was so long, but
It was a great gist though, because and that's a huge injustice because it doesn't recognize those millions of people that either lacked insurance to begin with or didn't have it. And that's why this is just a huge problem. Like the proponents of this and the people who support this, they'll say that the reason why this is a good thing is because Cobra pays the insurance companies to keep the things going, right? Like to keep your plan going. But it's a huge giveaway because it's the government that's paying for that, and the government doesn't have its own money.
yeah,
They have our money. The
taxpayer
American
money.
taxpayer is gonna foot the bill for this, and they are paying. Not only is it going to the insurance companies now, earlier went to the fucking big corporations, Wall Street, the biggest banks. Now it's going to this bill is worth, I believe, $3 trillion. So it's the biggest one so far, and look what happened with it. Like this is just an over and over reoccurring thing that we're seeing with these relief bills and the relief bills that are coming out of Congress during this time. It's absolutely insane. Go ahead.
I just thought of this, and the people. It's really funny because you were offered, if you were offered healthcare through your employer, you get money taken out of your check weekly or biweekly, however you're paid. I suppose it's normally biweekly or monthly, right? And you pay for that out of your paycheck. So you are paying for your health insurance that your employer is offering to you. And this whole act is taking taxpayer money, people who are not paying for this health, who are not receiving any of this benefit, any of this health care. And then that money is being used so that the people who are already paying for this health care are able to receive their health care. Like you would think that they would already be receiving this health care because they've been paying into it, kind of like when an employer pays into unemployment so that if something happens, their employees are covered. You would think that that would be the same sort of thing, right? Now, instead, we have taxpayers, people who are not being benefited by this at all, helping other people get their health insurance.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way for the government to kind of respond to this. Interesting is a very nice way to put it, in my opinion, of course. But let's go on to further explain how they kind of dropped the ball here and how this really went down. So I kind of highlighted here for you guys to see. In late April, dozens of industry groups, including the influential conservative Chamber of Commerce, sent a letter to congressional leadership asking for direct subsidies for Cobra, expanding uses for health savings accounts, and increasing eligibility to access healthcare. So these guys sent them a letter to Congress, like you guys should cover this, and here's the reason why. As we see here, a couple weeks earlier, the nation's second largest health insurance lobby, America's health insurance plans, joined a congressional call with members of the conservative Democratic Blue Dog Caucus to ask for protections for employer coverage. So they were actively reaching out, not only with a letter to Congress that they mentioned in late April, but a couple weeks earlier with the call with conservative Democratic members in the House on April 13th to talk about direct payments or subsidies for Cobra.
Which we should not forget that these are people who, as you mentioned before, are more likely to be able to afford their health care than people who already do not have health care.
100%, and that's what's really messed up about this, or actually one part of it. It's all messed
up. And yet, House Democrats are appealing to these people, and meanwhile, they've been fighting for the complete other 90% of the Democratic Party. That's who they've really been fighting for. this fighting for this whole time, working class families, people who can't afford, who aren't making a living wage, and now they're actually helping
Hmm. What's really
these
interesting
people.
about this as well is that one person who was on that April 13th call, um, who works for one of the insurers and apparently was not authorized to speak publicly about the conversation, said AIHP's push for targeted relief to employers who pay premiums to insurance companies was puzzling, given that insurance companies have seen recent profits. AHIP discussed from the perspective of protecting employer-sponsored coverage, which would be the health plan. That's what they sell, So they're kind of framing it like they're protecting Americans. They're in it to like save lives or whatever, but they're pushing the healthcare like plans that they sell to these people, and they're pushing it on the government now to step in.
Yep.
So this is
Yep.
why that's a huge giveaway. This is why.
Yeah. It's just like when Governor Cuomo talked about how the cost of ventilators has tripled since this pandemic. It's, people see this opportunity to make money, and it's disgusting opportunity to make money, and they have seized the day.
They definitely have seized the opportunity to do so, just along with other giant businesses. And we know that this is not, of course, unique to the Democrats. It's also in the Republican Party as well. The two parties duopoly holds a firm grip on all of us with their sponsorships, their corporate sponsorships from the donor class. So that's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
We're playing out.
Funny to see, because they were talking with the conservative Democratic
Like, why do you think they have so
caucus.
much power, right, with and influence with the legislators? It's because they lobby, they lobby to Congress. We all know this, right? They
Mhm.
spend millions, probably nearing billions now, if it hasn't reached that already, trying to sway the opinions of the legislators, the people that make the laws and regulate these companies and these people, right? Um, on top of that, they form super PACs, they donate directly to their campaigns, bankroll their campaigns, and that's why this is all going down. Like,
Yeah.
that's why they have so much influence, because the oligarchs, the people in power, the business, and the donor class have always held a firm grip over our nation, and they're the ones that ultimately make the decisions, which is what's happened here. Like, all they had to do was send a letter, make a few calls,
Make a phone
they
call.
got over $3 trillion um, to just give away. Like this, the Heroes Act, which is one of the most important. Like I said, it's the biggest bill that's come across in the pandemic, and definitely within the uh, last few years, decades, whatever you want to call it, for like a relief bill. And it's another massive giveaway at a time when everybody lost, a lot of people are losing health insurance, no one has financial stability, and those two biggest things are this care act, or this heroes act, does not address either of those two main issues. They would rather give
Yeah.
money and put it in the hands of the insurance companies and uphold this fucked up healthcare system that we have in the United States, rather than give direct cash payments to us, um, or um, or just eliminate all the payments to the insurance companies and say you can't cancel their shit. Like, you just can't do that right now. Instead of having the political will and the balls to stand up to them, they'd rather just pay them. And
Yeah.
that speaks volumes to me. Like, that's what's most infuriating and frustrating about the situation, is that they know what's right, they know what they're doing, but and they know how much they could help us, but they're just choosing not to. They lack the political will, the political courage to stand up to either their parties, their donors, or anything like that. It's enough to make a sizable difference with this. So
Yeah.
sorry to kind of rant, but that's like the
No.
main gist behind this all, I think. Your take on any of that, or before we go back to the thing, if you want to comment on anything?
I mean, I just think that it's very it hopefully is very eye-opening to you all, our listeners, and to other people who aren't listening, who are just like noticing, these articles coming out about what this bill is actually doing. Um, there are definitely going to be struggling Americans that this does help, because they are one income households, and they, depended on this, employer offered insurance. But there are also plenty of people who are actually still working right now, who are still working during the pandemic, who are not getting health insurance, and yet are most at risk at getting this. And the fact that Democrats have routinely said that they do not agree with our healthcare system right now, and are now choosing to pay them off, are helping to keep the system going.
I think you bring up a really great point, because like if you guys remember just a short time ago, now that is like the presidential election cycle, um, a lot of the Democratic candidates, in fact, most if not all of them, I believe, other than like Joe Biden, who fucking turned out to be the nominee, um, supported
Go
Medicare
figure.
for all, universal health care.
Go figure. And he's the candidate.
I wonder why. I wonder why. Um, and he, in fact, has said that if that bill was signed, put in front of him in the White House, he would not
That
sign
he
it.
would
Because
never
it's not
sign
what we
it.
call.
Yeah.
So, like what are we doing? Like, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. And this article actually kind of mentions that. They mentioned that how um, congressional Democrats and Democrats in general are setting themselves for policy and political failure by adopting the industry group's request to improve COBRA only temporarily for the next year. The provision of the HEROES Act runs through January 1st, 2021, setting the United States up for a healthcare crisis at the start of President Donald Trump's second term, or a Joe Biden administration, which I'm calling it. Not going to happen, but we'll see. I don't know. I don't want to put my hand in the crystal ball just yet. Let's go on this. It also goes on to say, on a purely political level, there is no reason to believe that the crisis will be over by November, or that the Senate Republicans are going to have any interest in passing more stimulus measures if Trump loses. So the Democrats are basically, what they're saying there is, the Democrats are basically wasting their time, um, trying to do this kind of stuff, and they're losing. They're going to lose their leverage soon enough. Early on, what they should have done is use all the political pressure that they had from the American people, from everywhere, basically, that it was coming from, to get something done, get some relief bill passed through the government, to get the main things that people wanted, the big issues, right? Healthcare, and address
Mm-hmm.
financial stability. But they have done neither of those things, and they've passed
Neither.
multiple measures up until now, which I think
To
is
help big
notable.
corporations.
But the thing to notice there, why I bring it up, is because earlier on they had a shit ton of leverage. The Democrats had a ton of leverage, and with that first stimulus bill, what happened? It was just a fucking giveaway. It was a giveaway, just like this one is a giveaway. Um, and it was shady. They didn't even want to fucking. It was a roll call vote. They didn't even want their names to be associated with this. So we know that this is just another ploy to pander to their voters come election time, and make them think that they're actually doing something and they care about us, when the reality is the direct opposite. What the sad reality is the exact opposite. So, anything there, or do you? Let's go ahead and go back here. So, another, let's see, one thing that I did want to mention with this article, last thing I wanted to mention, uh, I don't know about you, is a quote from Bernie Sanders that he wrote in an op-ed on April 28th, criticizing the Democrats' push to subsidize Cobra, saying, quote, subsidizing Cobra, as they have suggested, would be both expensive and ineffective. Not only would health insurance corporations make massive profits off the plan, profits that come at the cost of the American taxpayer, but it would still leave tens of millions uninsured or underinsured, he wrote. Expanding Cobra during the pandemic would do nothing to cover those who already lacked insurance. He added, noting that the program's subsidies for premiums would not provide relief for low-income workers who have to pay high deductibles. So I
Hmm.
think Bernie makes a really great point there, but at the same time, bro, like you should have said something earlier, Like we see through you,
Yeah.
bro. Like at least us in this podcast, we know we see through you. Ashley and I, come on, we're watching you, bro. We know that you didn't stand up when it was your time, when you had the most leverage, when you had the most people behind you supporting you. Um, and that speaks volumes. So even though you're trying to do the right thing now, it sounds like a little too late. Especially when, like as we just read, they're probably going to lose a lot of their leverage come time when President Trump is back in office. So
Yeah.
yeah, so wins re-election. So any thoughts? Any departing last thoughts
Um,
on this topic?
I feel like I've said a lot. I agree with this. I agree with the idea of making sure that people are covered, that their health insurance is not a worry during this time. Obviously, I think that should not be a worry ever. But however, I think that this bill is not, it's not going to help the people who are really the most concerned right now, which are people who are most likely to get sick because they're still working. And then, people who are uninsured and, afraid that if they do get sick, they're not going to be able to afford it.
Mhm.
Um, so I just hope that enough people wake up and see that this is not, Democrats are not fighting for us, guys. Clearly not fighting for us.
Yeah, the majority of the Democrats need to wake up to that reality. I was just seeing earlier today someone comment about some I believe it was Megan McCain said something about Obama, and she had a lot of shit talked about her, even though what she said was right. I don't 100% know what she said, to be honest with you, but I think it's really interesting that you bring that up because you guys, the Democrats, or I don't know, whoever's listening or watching this, you need to just come into politics with an open mind, because and actually retain and like be in politics with an open mind because when you start off and then you're like learning or whatever, like okay, I like this, I like that, fine, right? But where the problem is that like single issue voters, that's a huge problem. Another thing is just like fixating on your party and just kind of playing it like a team sport or like seeing it like that, like my team's winning, your team's losing. Bullshit,
Mhm.
right? When we're all neighbors and we're all in this country together, we're all in it together. So you need to be open and aware to different types of policies, different people, different candidates, different ideologies, different things that would would bring about the kind of changes that you would want to see in our country. Like we all want nice things, but we don't fight for it enough to be able to get those things. I would say
Absolutely.
what I think is really interesting, and that kind of brings up another point that I wanted to bring up, is that a lot of people think that the government can do things, right? They can't spend a lot of money on this because we're broke. We're $27 trillion in debt, right? They'll say that time and time again, but as we know, and as we keep finding out during this pandemic of 2020, the coronavirus, is that that's bullshit. They can print as much money as they want. This is a fiat currency. The
And
Fed
they have been.
Exactly. And they have been doing it for the corporations, for the biggest banks, for Wall Street, and now for the insurance companies, upholding the most costly per capita healthcare insurance system in the entire world. And as we know, it's most expensive because of the insurance companies themselves.
Mhm.
So they're just getting rich off of this, motherfuckers. But I just wanted to mention that that's all bullshit. Like all their excuses, all the politicians' excuses is all bullshit. They can do whatever they want. They just have to have the will, the political will and the courage to be able to do so and stand up to either their party, the president, the establishment, the deep state, whatever it can be or it should be. What happens to those types of people? It's because they're scared of it. That's why they don't do it. What happens to those types of people? People like Ralph Nader that stood up, um, they get cast aside, they get forgotten about, and they get slandered and
Politically ostracized.
absolutely. So and that's what Bernie Sanders didn't want.
Excommunicated.
That's what Bernie Sanders didn't want this time around.
Hmm.
So we have to be aware of that. We have to be aware of everything. Like, do you think we didn't want to like Bernie Sanders? Like, I wanted to love him. Like, I wanted him to win. And
Yeah.
for him to do all these things, but I had to keep an open mind that not all these people think the same way I do. Not all of them want the same things, but we have to be aware of
Absolutely.
everything they're doing. We have to be aware of the truth. We have
Yeah.
to know the truth.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's really, and we've talked about this before. I don't want to like get off base too much, but that's what is so important about being able to have an open discussion with people who you disagree with and people who disagree with you, and not have this. It's good. It's just good conversation. It's not anything that we should be fearful of, because in the long run, we learn from each other.
100%. 100%. So on that end, on that note, we will end this episode. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in and joining us to learn about how the Democrats are completely fucking us per usual. So thanks, and please follow us on our social media pages. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on YouTube. We have our own website where we write articles. Go ahead, check that out. You can find us most of us our handles pretty much. But you can find us at our handle, which is at Over Disruptor Podcast on most of these platforms. You'll be able to find us. So thanks again, guys, and we will see you on the next episode. Okay.
Bye.